Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Celia Schoening, the CEO and founder of Scenic Route Studios, joining us. Celia will be sharing more about her founding story and giving us a glimpse into the plans for future growth. So let's jump right in. Celia, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here by way of Austin, Texas.
All the way from Austin, Texas.
Way
So,
from
can you take us to the beginning of Scenic Route Studios? What was the
Absolutely.
specific problem you was looking to solve and what made you start up?
Yeah, so fundamentally, I've spent 10 years in tech, and also the last 7 or so years, my center of gravity has really started to shift into creative communities and realizing that musicians, artists, other people who are sort of working with their own consciousness alongside a pop consciousness, their culture, their environment, they're sort of unearthing these truths about our culture that are really relevant to business, but these two entities remain sort of distinct. So I uniquely have a foot in both sides as somebody who's worked for Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Big Five consulting firm, but also somebody who's had a dozen group gallery shows, three solos self-produced, and keep up with literature both in behavioral science as well as in the arts. So I'm a super curious person, and I think we're in a moment where synthesis is really necessary. We're in the age of information where, there's so much noise, and we need a mindful and creative approach to find a way through that, to navigate sort of what's next and thinking about more resilient futures for our businesses, for our communities, and also just for the legacies that we're building. So the legacy that I'm really focused on and excited to keep building is for people and planet. It's sort of a new type of eco-diplomacy that's not happening between countries necessarily, although props to the work that the UN and other organizations are doing on that front. But more, how do we knit together the disparate parts of our community? Because fundamentally, I see the loneliness epidemic and the climate crisis as highly interrelated. So if we can solve for connection, we're solving on both fronts.
Awesome, I love that. Now, so you mentioned there your background within the tech industry and then also within the music industry and how you've collaborated the two together to work through this. And I mean, I can completely agree and I completely understand where you're coming from. But walk me through the offer evaluation. So what does this look like from start to finish in terms
Yeah,
of the product
absolutely.
and the sales process?
So I think the benefit of being a solopreneur is that every project can be a passion project if I want it to be. And I'm keeping it in that stage because to me, I'm curious about the different formats that can scale, and scaling through strategic partnerships as well. So really, we're a creative agency that operates as an advisory partner, a consulting partner, a facilitator, event production. So really creating spaces, whether that's digital or in the community, in a physical space, spaces that are centered on regeneration and thinking about how do we come together to deeply listen? How do we bring people who are closest to the issues? For example, I'm working on a heat island reduction project right now in Austin, where we're creating a new green space in a space that's mostly pavement and is very unlivable through the Texas summers. And so for something like that, I'm going to the community, I'm seeking expertise from other partners, folks who are adjacent, and then we approach that opportunity together. So whether it's through grant funding, private grants, other investors, cobbling together the resources and being scrappy about that approach in a way that allows us also to stay nimble. So rather than the way a lot of business works, having a roadmap and a solid plan to go in, we are really anchoring on listening. So this is adapted from some of the design thinking and cultures at Google and Amazon, where they're starting with the customer and working backwards. So with my clients, we're defining, okay, who's our customer? It's not necessarily the business owner or the venue owner, but it might actually be the surrounding community, the neighborhood, the folks who engage in that space. And then going another level deeper for the eco diplomacy aspect. What are the natural life forms that exist in this space? Is there a creek that we need to be thoughtful of? Are there trees that need nourishment? How can we really think about how this project impacts the ecosystem as a whole? And that ultimately impacts human health and our learning and growth and wellness outcomes on a huge level.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, you're talking there about spaces and virtual spaces and whatever other areas of the world that we're going into. Um, Talk to me. How are you going about acquiring these customers? What is it that
Yeah,
you're doing? How are you putting yourself out there to get these spaces and to get these people driving through you?
absolutely. Yeah, I think it makes sense to share a couple of key organizations that I'm part of, where I'm really coming together with peers, and then solutions are building solutions based on the needs that we're seeing. So I've, for the last 5 years, been part of Yale Blue Green, which is an alumni coalition, intergenerational, global, rooted in climate action and education. So how do we keep folks engaged? And again, it's one thing to have a lot of knowledge, but to apply your knowledge and to do so in service of a community is a lot different. So I'm part of that group. I'm part of a behavioral science network called Action Design Network, now known as Bessie. So sharing applied insights, and a lot of my colleagues here in Texas work on health related applications, whether that's nutrition and diet or healthy living and behaviors, exercise, taking care of yourself, sort of the routines to keep that up. And then also through the creative community. So a couple of my best clients, I did a campaign for Solana, and it was about essentially folks are very frustrated with Ticketmaster and the scalping and not being able to get tickets to their favorite show. And so we did sort of a voice of the customer approach with Solana, where we talked to music fans in Austin, which is a live music capital. And what are the ways that this solution built on Solana was actually helping them focus more on what they love and not having to worry about the tech. And I think ultimately that's a through line of my career as well. How can we help people focus on what they do best? And tech just streamlines or amplifies it and sort of disappears. It's no longer the focus. We're no longer adapting to tech, but tech is adaptive to us and making the situation a lot better and more focused and more mindful. Yeah, Solana was a great client. I'm also connected to the slow fashion movement here in Texas, which has been a surprise. I grew up as a total tomboy, but realizing the power of art and aesthetics through fashion, through that everyday aesthetic and engagement, a point of conversation, it really gives us an opportunity to spark some dialogue about consumerism, about the materials and the provenance of where we're buying things from and the people on the other side of that, as well as the environments and ecosystem impacts on the other side of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I want to touch on the fact that you mentioned there that um, we have to use tech like alongside us. It's not all of us, but if we use it as a tool rather than shaping ourselves around the tech,
Mm.
I really appreciate that because I feel like with the modern world and with the whole AI movement coming on at the moment, do you feel like that's going to have an impact in what you're doing and what problems you're trying to solve?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
with the takeover of tech, literally.
Sure. Well, I think so. And a lot of folks are saying, tech isn't going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use the tech might take your job.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair for sort of white collar workers, but for some more blue collar manufacturing jobs, customer facing service jobs, there are things being automated. I was part of the beta for Amazon's brick and mortar cashierless retail while I was working there, and it was so wild to be able to go in and out, and they're using computer vision to track what items you pick up and walk out the store with. So there are some solutions where people are being automated out of a job and an opportunity. But I think for me, in my horizons, I would love to teach Gen AI workshops to creative entrepreneurs.
Nice.
I'm in talks with a couple of different organizations who serve the BIPOC community in particular, because I think that the fear factor and the hesitation of, oh, I'm not a tech person, can get in the way of you actually benefiting and having some tangible value from tools like this. For me, that's looked like, planning a tour agenda. Say I'm going to take somebody out to 3 galleries, and I've done my research on the artist, but I want to create a really nice and tidy through line to keep people engaged and have a real story arc. So a tool like, ChatGPT, or I like Gemini as well, from Google. They allow you to synthesize and create basically a synthesis framework. I highly recommend, if anybody is new to playing with Gen AI or has been hesitating and just wants to dive in and do a cannonball, go check out Ali Miller. She's a fantastic AI teacher, educator. She actually has taught AI on all of the continents, including Antarctica. So she has helped me come up with frameworks and just fun ways to try it. I know as well, we have to be thoughtful about the energy consumption and usage behind the data centers powering a lot of this AI. So I try to be judicious. It's not an everyday, but it's sort of where can I accelerate, or where do I have a lot of unstructured data or information where AI could help be a partner, a research partner, more so than the end output or result.
Of it, 100%. And then with that being said, how what do you see beyond the horizon for Scenic Route Studios? What do you see, what are the priorities for growth over the next 12 months?
Absolutely. So I debuted a new project during South by Southwest. I'm part of a collective called Canvas and Vogue, founded by my friend Katie Agbasi, who by day is an engineer working on Apple hardware, and by night is a fashion designer and now a creative host of these amazing collaborative events across art, tech, fashion, music. So we had an event at KMFA, which is our local classic music radio station space during South by Southwest. And I debuted a new nature-based new media piece as part of that. So we actually got an accessibility grant, an ADA grant to support our event from the city of Austin. And as part of that, they were looking for us to engage deaf and hard of hearing communities in particular, which we're the live music capital of the world, as we like to brag. But if I'm somebody who can't hear and I'm coming to an event that centers on music, what does that mean for me? And so we asked ourselves the question, how could we creatively engage this community, bring them in to an event that was centered on music and specifically Afrobeats, R&B, amazing
Hmm.
music from selectors across the city. Um, and so this piece took inspiration from another new media artist named Lachlan Turkson, who did a project for Milan Design Week several years ago. And there's a way you can visualize sound through water. It creates fractal patterns at certain frequencies, and especially for a lot of the types of music in this event, the polyrhythms, it made very complex, beautiful designs. And so I put a call out to a couple of friends, again, very, very collaborative by nature, and built a live input output pipeline to take the music from our event, the three performers, three DJs as an input, and then pipe that into a physical dish, a petri dish of water, which was then, we took a camera, so it was a macro image of these fractal patterns that the music was creating that we projected live. So you could see the music, which was amazing. So this is something that I'm looking at taking to a larger scale. I think that there's a desire in the market, not just for immersive experiences, but immersive, inclusive experiences. How can we tap into this notion of synesthesia and build for that to bring everybody into a space where language becomes a lot less of an object and it's more about the feeling, the emotion, the collective effervescence is a term that I love.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you can hear the emotion in your voice when you're talking about it as well. So obviously it means so much to you, and to see you explain it and going through that, I've never heard anything like it. To be able to see music
Mhm.
is pretty incredible. Um, so yeah, like I have no words. I'm like awe-inspired by what you
Yeah.
just said.
So it was
Um,
amazing for me too, because it was a challenge. I've never done something
yeah.
on that scale. I do have an art practice, which I consider my own sort of R&D lab. It's where I get clear on my own ideas and values and priorities, and also
Mm,
indulge my curiosity. Because if you're building that muscle of curiosity, you're always going to be building towards what's next instead of catching up to what was yesterday. And as much as it's good and credentialing to share that I've worked for big tech companies, I've learned just as much from the failures there as much as the success. And so I think too,
yeah.
you know, where there are opportunities to go beyond and not just react to the culture, but to take a forethought and have a proactive vision of, hey, I want to be in a room where everybody speaks the same language, you know?
No, yeah. And I suppose music can do that, music is a feeling for me. It's not something that you need to understand or you need to speak about. It's something that makes you feel what's inside on the outside. So I hear you 100%. And I
Definitely.
suppose what would you say is currently preventing you from scaling that bit faster and addressing and how are you addressing those challenges at the moment?
So I think for me, I'm actually not, my challenge now is just getting that into a repeatable, being able to replicate that quickly. I actually have an invitation to replicate that for an Earth Day event this coming month. So less than a month after I've shared this project, there's already appetite to include it in other experiences and community events. I think I'm changing my tactic of how I'm sharing my ideas, what platforms and opportunities I'm approaching as well. Um, Academia has long been inspiring for me, so I'm starting to consider um, combined academic and industry conferences. There are a couple, again, I think that the European market tends to be a little bit more ahead. I'm part of an organization called Advaya that does really wonderful coursework around philosophy and ecology and sort of the human condition and how we can build a world that's more supportive of that, but also more supportive of our neighbors and other living beings in our environment. So I'm just taking that continuous learner approach, keeping my eyes to the horizon. And something about me too, I believe in Kairos time more than Chronos time, which maybe makes me different than a lot of startup founders, where things will unfold in their time at the right time. And so for me, it's just luck favors the prepared, so it's the preparation that's ongoing now and building relationships to get me to where I need to be.
Love that. And what would be one piece of advice you would give to a founder that's looking to start in their own journey at the moment?
Hmm, let me think. I think that one piece of advice that's been really valuable to me is that a lot of indigenous communities aren't just thinking about the next, 2 quarters or the next fiscal year, or they're thinking in terms of generations. In fact,
Hmm.
not just the immediate after generation, your children, but 7 generations. So if you're thinking about, how do I suppose, honor those who came before, while also creating a better world for those who will inherit it.
100% leaving a legacy behind for you, It's the ones for the future. Love that.
Definitely.
So, and that is a wrap on another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Cecelia for sharing her incredible journey and insight with us today. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future via whatever platform you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.